Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're tackling a city that's, well, a real paradox. Jerusalem, often called the City of Peace, right?
That's the name, yeah.
Ah.
Yerushalayim, Beitul Maqdis.
But its history, it's seen so much conflict, maybe more than almost anywhere else. A sacred place for billions, but rarely peaceful.
Yeah,
That's what we're diving into.
Exactly. We've been looking at this really detailed historical account. It covers Jerusalem's, incredible significance to Judaism, Christianity, and Islam.
And its many, many conquests over the millennia.
Right, and one specific conquest that was different, actually peaceful, under the Islamic Caliphate. It's quite a story.
So our mission today is to pull out the key insights from this history. We want to find those aha moments for you, connect some dots, and just help make sense of the layers, the complexity of this sacred city's past.
It's thousands of years, countless figures.
Yeah, buckle up. We're going to try and weave it all together for you. So let's start with that core significance, Jerusalem as this nexus point.
It really is. You've got three major faiths deeply rooted there.
For Judaism, it's the Western Wall, the holiest site, a remnant of the Second Temple.
For Christians, a church believed to hold the empty tomb of Isa, or Jesus, hugely sacred.
And for Muslims, Masjid Al-Aqsa, right there on the Temple Mount area, Islam's third holiest site after Makkah and Madinah.
And like you said, the name means City of Peace, reportedly named way back by Shem, Prophet Noah's son.
But the reality, constantly caught in the crossfire of empires, of faiths.
It's a stark contrast.
And adding another layer, the sheer number of prophets connected to this land. It's astounding.
It really is. Ibrahim, Dawood, Suleiman, Musa, Isa, Muhammad. Peace be upon them all. So many prophets sent to Jerusalem or the surrounding areas. You don't really see that density anywhere else.
Okay, so let's rewind. Way back, like 4,000 years ago, Prophet Ibrahim.
Right. Born in Ur, in modern-day Iraq. And you have to picture this. Ur was apparently the world's biggest city back then.
Wow. And Ibrahim, he stood against the polytheism, the idol worship, famously survived being thrown into a fire.
A miraculous event, yeah. And after that, he eventually migrated, made his way to the land of Palestine.
And this is crucial, isn't it? His lineage.
Absolutely pivotal. His two sons, Ismail, who settled in Mecca, ancestor of Prophet Muhammad.
And Ishak, Isaac, who stayed in Palestine, ancestor of thousands of prophets.
From Ishak comes Jacob, also known as Israel, and his descendants, the Bani Israel, the children of Israel.
Which leads us to the story of Joseph, Jacob's son. The whole coat of many colors thrown in a well by his brothers.
Yeah, that whole dramatic saga. It leads him to Egypt, and incredibly, he rises up to become basically the prime minister.
And because of a famine back in Palestine, his family, the Bani Israel, they all migrate to Egypt to join him.
Right, seeking safety. But over time, that sanctuary, it became a trap. They ended up enslaved by Pharaoh.
For 400 years, that's a long time.
A very long time. Until Prophet Moses arrives, he leads this huge group, 600,000 Bani Israel, out of Egypt. The Exodus.
Freedom at last. But their journey back to Palestine wasn't simple. They get there and find these powerful tribes already living there. The Amalekites, the Amorites.
Exactly. And here comes this really critical moment after everything. Escaping slavery, the miracles. Allah commands them to fight to reclaim the land.
And they refuse.
They refused. They were afraid of these powerful tribes. And the source describes this refusal as incurring Allah's anger.
So what was the consequence?
A harsh one. 40 years wandering in the desert. That entire generation, including Musa and his brother Harun, peace be upon them, they died out there.
Wow. 40 years.
Yeah.
Whole generation reset.
Pretty much. It was a test of faith they failed, leading to this divine punishment. It wasn't until a new generation grew up in the desert, tougher, more faithful.
Under Yuzha bin Nun, Joshua.
Yeah. Under Joshua. They were finally ready. And after 500 years since leaving Egypt, they finally conquered all of Palestine.
So conquest achieved. How did they govern this land then?
It was interesting. They divided Palestine into 12 parts, one for each of the 12 tribes of Bani Israel. And instead of a king, they were ruled by a group of judges.
Judges, like legal figures.
More like tribal leaders or chieftains guiding their specific tribes. But this system, over time, it didn't hold. The source says these judges became corrupt.
Corrupt how?
Altering the Torah, their holy book, even, shockingly, killing prophets sent to guide them, like Zachariah and Yahya, John the Baptist. This weakened them significantly.
The weakness invites trouble.
Exactly. Which brings us into the Philistines, a powerful group led by this giant warrior named Jalut. Goliath.
Goliath. Okay, now we're getting into familiar stories.
Right. And Jalut and the Philistines, they actually invaded and captured Jerusalem, a major blow.
So the Bani Israel, weakened by corruption, their capital city lost. What did they do?
They realized they needed unity. They pleaded for a king, one single leader. So Prophet Samuel was guided to choose Talut, or Saul, as their first king.
And this sets the stage for that battle.
The legendary one, the Philistine army, led by the fearsome Jalut, described as almost 9 feet tall. And nobody dares fight him.
Until
the young shepherd boy, David, steps forward.
with just a sling and a stone.
Incredibly, takes down Jalut with a single shot, becomes an instant hero, a renowned warrior.
And eventually, after Talut, Dawood becomes the most powerful king Palestine had seen.
Yes, and his son, Solomon, inherited that kingdom and took it to even greater heights.
Solomon was given extraordinary powers, wasn't he? Control over wind, birds, even the jinn.
That's what the traditions say, yes. Unparalleled divine power. And he used this power and wealth to build the magnificent first temple of Solomon in Jerusalem.
More than just a temple, though. It was like the center of his empire.
Exactly. The source calls it the parliament of his empire, a symbol of unity, power, and divine blessing, the absolute peak for Bani Israel.
But peaks often lead to valleys. What happened after Suleiman?
After his death, that unity fractured. The kingdom split into 2. 10 tribes in the north, 2 tribes in the south. And they started fighting each other. Internal conflict again.
That internal division seems like a recurring theme.
It really does, and it had huge consequences. The 10 northern tribes were eventually conquered and permanently exiled by another powerful nation. Wiped off the map, essentially.
Lost tribes. Is that where the Pashtun theory comes in?
That's one theory some historians explore, yes. That these exiled tribes might be the ancestors of the Pashtuns in Afghanistan and Pakistan. It's debated, of course, but it shows how deep these historical roots run.
So only 2 tribes remained.
The 2 southern tribes, primarily Judah, which is where the term Jews comes from, but their troubles were far from over. Next came the Babylonians.
Under Nebuchadnezzar.
Yes, a devastating invasion. Millions killed, according to the account. The beautiful first temple of Solomon burned to the ground, and the survivors were dragged off as slaves to Babylon.
Another exile. For 50 years this time. It's just relentless.
Cycle after cycle. But then, another twist. The Persian Empire rises. Cyrus the Great conquers Babylon.
Can he frees the Jews?
He does, and not only frees them, but actually funds the rebuilding of their temple in Jerusalem, the Second Temple. Some Muslim scholars even identify Cyrus with Bilqain mentioned in the Quran.
Incredible. So the Western Wall today
Is a remnant of that Second Temple, built thanks to Cyrus, a powerful symbol of that return.
So Jews lived in Palestine again, under Persian rule initially, for about 5 centuries?
Yes, a long period of relative stability. Until the next great power arrived on the scene, the Roman Empire. They conquered Palestine, turned it into just another province.
And this brings us right to the time of Prophet Isa, Jesus.
Exactly, sent specifically to the Jews, who, the source notes, had become quite corrupt again under Roman rule.
But they didn't accept his message.
Largely, no. There was resistance and eventually a conspiracy with the Roman authorities to have him killed, but the account emphasizes Allah's intervention, saving him miraculously.
What happened to the Jewish community after Isa's departure?
The repercussions were severe. There were major Roman-Jewish wars, millions more were killed, and crucially, the Romans destroyed the Second Temple, burned it down again.
Which is why there's the belief in a future Messiah rebuilding a 3rd temple.
Precisely. That destruction led to another massive exile, this one lasting almost 2,000 years. Jews were expelled from Palestine and specifically banned from even entering Jerusalem by the Romans for about 600 years.
And during this long exile, the Roman Empire itself undergoes a massive change.
Right, it adopts Christianity. The very empire that had overseen the destruction of the temple and the exile of the Jews becomes Christian.
Wow, the ironies of history.
Yeah.
But the conflicts over Jerusalem weren't over.
Not by a long shot. Next up, the Persians attack again, this time against the Christian Roman Empire. They capture Jerusalem, kill reportedly 100,000 Christians, destroy churches, and carry off the true cross, a major relic.
A huge blow to the Christian Romans.
Massive. But eventually, the Romans fought back and won. They restored Jerusalem and got the cross back. This Persian-Roman war was so significant, it's actually mentioned in the Quran, in Surah Rum.
It shows just how central these conflicts were, even beyond the region.
Definitely. But just as the Romans perhaps felt secure, having defeated their old rivals, A new power explodes onto the scene from Arabia,
The Islamic Caliphate.
tracing its lineage right back to Ibrahim's first son, Ismail, a completely new force ready to reshape the world.
And this leads us to one of the most remarkable moments in Jerusalem's history, the Muslim conquest under Caliph Umar.
It really is unique. Muslim armies led by brilliant generals like Khalid bin Walid surround Jerusalem.
The city is led by the Christian patriarch, Sophronius. He knows the history, right? He knows what usually happens when Jerusalem falls.
He knows it gets destroyed every single time. So he holds out, writes to the Roman Emperor Heraclius in Constantinople for help. For 4 months, he waits.
But no help comes.
None. The main Roman army had already been crushed by Khalid bin Walid at the Battle of Yarmouk. They had no strength left to send. Jerusalem was on its own.
So Sophronius has to surrender. But he makes this extraordinary demand.
Absolutely extraordinary. He says, I won't surrender to your generals. I will only hand over the keys of the city to the Caliph himself, to Umar.
Why? Why insist on Umar personally? What was so special about him?
It all came down to Umar's reputation. Sophronius wasn't just facing an unknown conqueror, he was facing Umar. Stories of Umar's incredible justice, his humility, his simple life, they had spread far and wide.
Like the story of the Roman envoy finding him sleeping under a tree in Medina, mistaking the ruler of a vast empire for a commoner.
Exactly those kinds of stories. Sophronius believed, based on this reputation, that Umar was the only leader who would actually spare the city, who wouldn't allow the cycle of destruction to continue. He was gambling on Umar's character.
That's incredible faith in an enemy leader's virtue. How did Umar react? Did he just march in?
No, he first consulted his companions back in Medina. Uthman actually advised against going, saying the Romans were already beaten, no need for the Caliph to travel.
But Ali disagreed.
Ali advised him to go. Recognize the symbolic importance, perhaps the opportunity for a different kind of victory. Umar listened to Ali.
So he makes the journey.
He does, leaves Ali in charge of Medina, and sets off on this remarkably simple trip, 1,400 kilometers, about a month's journey. Just a few companions, one camel between them.
Now, there's that famous story about him and his servant taking turns on the camel, and the servant is riding when they arrive.
Yeah, the source we looked at specifically addresses that story and says it's unauthenticated. It points out the Muslim army already had thousands of camels by then, and the final approach to the city wasn't some long trek requiring that kind of turn-taking display. Umar's entire journey was simple, but that specific arrival story is likely embellished.
Okay, good clarification. So Umar arrives. What's his first interaction with his own commanders?
It's quite telling. He sees his top generals, Khalid bin Walid, Yazid bin Abi Sufyan, wearing fine, expensive silks, and he gets angry. Starts throwing pebbles at them.
Really? Why?
He reminded them, quite forcefully, that their honor, their success, came from Islam, from their faith and character, not from adopting the lavish dress of the conquered. It speaks volumes about his priorities. Humility and piety over outward show.
So this sets the tone for the actual surrender agreement, the Treaty of Umar.
Al-Uda al-Umariya, signed just outside the city walls. And its terms were revolutionary for the time.
What did it guarantee?
Guaranteed safety for the Christian inhabitants, their lives, their property, their churches, all protected. Crucially, no forced conversions to Islam, no racism, no seizure of their land without justification.
Was there a tax involved?
Yes, the jizya, a standard poll tax for non-Muslim subjects under Islamic rule, was required in return for this protection and exemption for military service.
This is completely different from previous conquests, wasn't it?
Utterly different. Conquest usually meant slaughter, enslavement, destruction. Umar established a framework for coexistence based on documented rights and responsibilities.
What about the Jews? They'd been banned from Jerusalem for 600 years by the Romans and Christians.
That was the most difficult point in the negotiations. Sophronius and the Christians demanded that the ban on Jews remain. They did not want Jews back in the city.
How did Umar handle that?
He refused to continue the complete ban. It was a point of principle. However, he compromised. He agreed Jews would not be allowed to reside permanently in Jerusalem at that time, but they would be allowed to visit the city.
Interesting. A partial lifting of the ban? How does the source interpret this decision?
The source presents this as a remarkably foresighted move by Umar. It explicitly links the later conflict, the unending war, to the time when Jews eventually did forcibly settle in Palestine much later. It argues Umar's decision, allowing visits but not mass settlement then, prevented earlier conflict. It's presented as a strategic balancing act.
So the treaty's agreed upon, witnessed by the generals,
and sealed with the Prophet Muhammad's own ring, which Umar used for official documents, a sign of its immense importance and legitimacy.
And this was genuinely the first time Jerusalem was conquered without bloodshed.
The very first time. A peaceful transition of power. And understandably, the source notes the Jewish community, despite historical tensions, was overjoyed. They were allowed back into the city, at least as visitors, championed by the Muslims against the Christian establishment's demands.
So Umar enters the city. Sophronia shows him the holy sites.
Yes, he takes him to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, the holiest site in Christianity, offers him the chance to pray inside.
And Umar refuses.
He politely declines. His reasoning was incredibly insightful. He said, if I pray here, Muslims after me might take it as a precedent and try to convert this church into a mosque.
Wow, thinking generations ahead.
Exactly. And sure enough, a mosque was later built to commemorate his visit, the Mosque of Umar, but pointedly outside the church compound, respecting its sanctity.
What did he do next?
He asked to be taken to the site of the ancient temple, Beit al-Maqdis, the Temple Mount, and he found it in a terrible state. The Romans, out of spite for the Jews, had turned it into a garbage dump, completely desecrated.
What was Umar's reaction?
He was appalled. And he didn't just order it cleaned, he got down on his hands and knees and started clearing the refuse himself with his own hands. His companions immediately joined him, a powerful act of restoring sanctity through personal humility.
Leading by example. So once it was cleared, the question was where to build a mosque, Masjid Al-Aqsa.
Right. Umar sought advice. He asked Kabal Abar, a prominent early Muslim who was formerly a Jewish scholar.
What did Kab suggest?
Kaaba suggested building the mosque behind the foundation stone, the sacred rock, so that Muslims praying would face both the rock, revered in Jewish tradition, and the Kaaba in Mecca.
How did Umar respond to that?
Umar reacted quite strongly. He saw this as Kab still holding on to Jewish habits, trying to incorporate the old reverence. Umar insisted the mosque be built in front of the rock, so worshippers faced only the Kaaba, the definitive direction of Muslim prayer, Qibla, with the rock behind them.
Establishing a clear Islamic identity for the site.
Precisely. So a simple wooden mosque was initially built there, on the spot Umar designated.
And there's one more incredibly powerful moment associated with Umar's entry into Jerusalem, involving Bilal.
Ah, yes. Bilal ibn Rabah, the Prophet Muhammad's original muezzin, the caller to prayer. A beloved figure, formerly an Abyssinian slave.
He had stopped giving the azan, the call to prayer, after the Prophet died, hadn't he, out of grief?
He had vowed never to give it again. It was too painful a reminder. But now, in liberated Jerusalem, Umar specifically asked Bilal to give the azan one more time from Beit al-Maqdis.
What happened when he did?
As Bilal's famous, powerful voice rang out with the azan over Jerusalem, the companions who were there, men who had fought alongside the Prophet, who remembered the early days of struggle, they just broke down and wept.
Why such emotion?
Because they remembered the Prophet Muhammad himself prophesying this very moment, predicting, back when the Muslims were weak and besieged, that they would one day defeat the mighty Roman and Persian empires and conquer Jerusalem. Hearing Bilal's azan there was the ultimate tangible fulfillment of that promise, a profoundly moving confirmation of their faith and journey.
It connects back to prophecy in another way, too, doesn't it? A more somber one?
Yes, unfortunately. The source highlights another prophecy of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. Given during the campaign of Tabuk, he foretold several things in sequence. His own death.
Which happened.
Then the conquest of Jerusalem.
Which Umar had just achieved.
And then he foretold a devastating plague would strike the Muslims, killing many of them.
And did that happen?
Tragically, yes. Shortly after the conquest of Jerusalem, a severe plague, known as the Plague of Amwaz, swept through the region of Syria and Palestine.
And it took a heavy toll on the Muslim leadership.
A terrible toll. Thousands died, including some of the most prominent companions and generals. Abu Ubaidah ibn al-Jarrah, the overall commander Umar had appointed, Yazid bin Abi Sufyan, one of the generals Umar had chided for his clothing, Mu'adh bin Jabal, a highly respected scholar, all died in the plague.
What about Khalid bin Walid, the famous general?
Khalid actually died around the same time, but the source clarifies he likely died from the cumulative effect of old battle wounds, not the plague itself. Still, his loss was immense.
So victory, fulfillment of prophecy, but then this devastating loss of life, including key leaders.
It's a stark reminder of the costs, even in moments of triumph. But these losses also inevitably created openings. New leaders had to step up.
Like Muawiyah bin Abi Sufyan, Yazid's brother.
Exactly. He was appointed governor of Syria after these losses, and his rise profoundly shaped the next phase of the caliphate's history. So the plague, while tragic, also inadvertently paved the way for the next generation of leadership.
This whole deep dive, it really underscores the sheer depth, the layers upon layers of history in Jerusalem. Millennia of faith, conflict, empires rising and falling.
And culminating in this absolutely unprecedented peaceful conquest under Umar, a moment shaped by reputation, by principle, by remarkable foresight.
We've seen how these key figures, these specific decisions, really did change the course of history for this city.
Which brings us to maybe a final thought to leave you with. We've seen the power of agreements like the Treaty of Umar, but also the fragility of peace in a place so intensely sacred.
Right. Given this incredibly complex, often violent past that we've unpacked, what does Jerusalem's story, especially that moment of peaceful transition, suggest about the challenge, the enduring challenge of finding lasting peace there today?
And perhaps more broadly, what lessons can we actually draw from Umar's approach, or even from the failures and conflicts throughout Jerusalem's long history, about how to foster genuine coexistence in places where religious identity and territory are so deeply intertwined? It's something to really think about.